Welcome to the Unbranded Leadership Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything about leadership and how we can utilize that to grow ourselves as leaders. I'm your host, Mike DeStefano, and on today's episode, we are going to discuss Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory. Mike DeStefano here with the Unbranded Leadership Podcast. I wanted to take a second to thank our sponsor, Recruit Strength, out of Melbourne, Florida. Recruit Strength is a strength training gym that offers 24-hour access to its members, as well as online and in-person strength and conditioning coaching. For more information or to contact them and get set up, visit recruitstrength.com. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory was published and presented in 1943, and since then has been used multiple times by researchers, academics, and leadership coaches and everything else to basically describe the behavior and the motivations of individuals based on their needs. So the hierarchy of needs theory, if you haven't seen it before, is a pyramid. It's described as a pyramid with 5 levels to it. And the reason why he utilized a pyramid is because each of those levels builds off of the next one. So the first level supports the second, which supports the third, which supports the fourth, which supports the fifth. And you can't get up the pyramid until that level is set. So as you're growing in the levels of it, if you for some reason the bottom level drops out, everything else resets back down to that, because that has to be met in order to move up that ladder of needs. What I want to talk about, though, with Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, especially for leadership and specifically the fire department leadership, is the needs of our employees and our firefighters in order for them to progress in their career and really stay with an organization. So I just finished, within the last week, I just finished my dissertation, my draft portion of the dissertation. I still have to get some edits done and then defend it and everything like that for my doctorate degree in strategic leadership. But I utilized 2 theories in my dissertation to investigate and explore the motivations of firefighters and how leadership can affect those motivations, as well as how they impact morale, and that the morale leads to increased or decreased turnover intent. So the 2 theories that I utilized was social exchange theory, which basically tells us that there has to be some sort of transaction that occurs for you to be motivated to do something. In other words, a social exchange means that one party is going to present and give this, and the other party is going to be motivated to do something in return based off of what they get. It's a give and take relationship, right? So for example, a way to describe social exchange theory would be a friendship. One person gets something out of the friendship, the other person gets another thing out of the friendship, and they decide mutually that it's beneficial for them to be friends, to have that relationship. The other theory that I utilized was Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, and this theory worked perfectly to describe those motivations of firefighters, how it impacted morale, and more importantly, how it impacted turnover intent and attrition levels. So let's dig into it a little bit here, and we'll start at the very base of the pyramid, and we'll work our way up of how it really relates to the fire department and how as leaders we can impact these motivations and needs and provide for these firefighters in order to create a long-term career in which we can really have them, for lack of better terms, from cradle to the grave. I want to hire a firefighter that's brand new out of fire school at 20 years old, and I want to see that employee retire as fire chief 30 years later. And if I can get that done, and maybe not fire chief, somewhere along their career, but they've grown in their career. They haven't just stayed stagnant. So that's the plan. That's the goal, right? Cradle to the grave. From start to finish, they stay with one organization. And this is possible. This is definitely possible, even in our current society where a lot of times people are being told to jump ship. They're being told to go from one organization to another organization to another organization in order to try to chase that almighty dollar. And we see this a lot right now, especially in the private sector. I believe I read a study the other day that said that the average tenure of someone in the private sector is 2 years. That's the average tenure. before they go to another organization in order for a promotion, a pay raise, or whatever. In fact, you see over and over and over again that you have these leadership and these success magazines that are telling people that if you want to raise, if you want to make more money, that you should jump ship, that you can get 10 to 15% every single time you move from one organization to the next. So this is something that's being really pumped into the minds of our youth in this new generation. And these are the guys and girls who are joining the ranks of the fire service. And really the culture and the organization and the career and industry itself is changing because of this. So that's our 10,000 foot table of contents for today's podcast. So let's dig into it a little bit. So the first level in fact, let's go over all the levels real quick of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the 5 levels are your physiological needs, your safety needs, your love and belonging needs, esteem, and then self-actualization. So like I said, we're going to dig in from the first all the way up to the top. The first one is physiological needs. And these are described as air, food, water, shelter, sleep, clothing, etc., right? Now, how does this impact our firefighters? And when we look at this from a needs as a human-based needs, this is our survival needs, right? And that's kind of what I nicknamed it as, is our survival needs. So when we look at the job front and we look at our firefighters, the physiological needs are the ability to provide food and shelter and clothing, right? So that means that's our pay. If we're not paying our firefighters or anyone, any employee in our organization, if we take this into the private sector, if we're not paying our employees enough to survive and to have a family, to put food on the table and to be able to provide shelter, then everything else on that pyramid doesn't matter anymore. Because the reality is you're going to work to provide for your family. There's a level of survival that has to be met. So if we're not able to provide that to them, we're never going to keep that employee. That is number one. It doesn't matter all of the other levels that we may be able to provide to someone if the pay is not there because they have to survive. They're not showing up because it's fun. They're not showing up because it's, their calling or anything else. They're showing up because of the fact that they need to provide for their family and they need to survive. So that's number one, is our pay, right? Our pay and compensation. When I talk about that, I also want to dig a little deeper into that, because we talked about food, and food for the most part is a constant cost. When you look at the areas and the cost of living in various different geographic locations, food for the most part is pretty similar. Water, same way, it's pretty similar. Clothing, same deal. We can all go on, whatever website and purchase things online. So the cost is very similar. But shelter is one that is very, very dynamic. It's a huge variable. So when we look at the areas that our organizations are in, that our fire department is in, we have to make sure that our pay is comparable and competitive enough to allow them to live within the jurisdiction, or at least close to the jurisdiction that we're providing services for. So take it one step further there. You want your firefighters to live in or near the community they serve and be a part of that community. If they're unable to afford that because of the fact that the pay is just too low and the cost of living is too high in that area, you are always constantly going to have people that leave. I promise you that. People will only drive an hour, 2 hours to work for a certain amount of time before they say, you know what, this isn't worth it anymore. I'm sick of going to this location and leaving my community behind. The other thing is we want those firefighters to be a part of the community. We want them to be there on their days off as well as when they're on duty, because when they're part of the community, they are part of the people that they're serving. There's nothing greater than, a firefighter getting on scene and the patient going, oh, hey, Joe, how are you? I saw you at the fair yesterday, or whatever it may be. There's a comfort level that comes with that, and there's a buy-in level for that employee to the community that they serve. So that's number one, is our physiological needs that are really related to pay and compensation for our firefighters, and making sure that the pay is high enough for them not only to survive, but also to be able to afford shelter in or near the community that they serve. The second one is our safety needs. And safety needs is described as personal security, employment, resources, health, and property. And that's what the general description of it is on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I want to say that because, again, we're relating this back to the fire department, we're relating it back to employment, we're relating it back to leadership. So the employment aspect, I'm going to kind of delete out of there because that's what we're talking about. The entire thing is our employment, right? But let's look at the rest of it here. From the safety standpoint, job security is a big one, right? So when we look at personal security, let's look at from the employment standpoint, job security. If I go to work every day and I'm fearful of my job, I'm fearful that my job is going to either A, fire me, or B, I'm going to get laid off because of economic downturns, because of decreased funding in the organization, or whatever it may be. If that's constantly on my mind, again, the rest of the pyramid doesn't matter. I'm never going to reach to those points because that's my number one focus. Pay is good. I'm surviving. I'm able to pay my bills. Good. So level 1, check. Level 2, I have to have that job security because if I'm constantly thinking that I'm going to lose my job, I'm not there mentally and I'm not there motivationally. Another aspect of our safety needs is health. And when I say health, I don't mean the actual physical health. I mean health care. Going back to this, benefits are a big factor when it comes to our decision of where to work and how long to work. So if I have a great paying job, I have enough money to live in my community, I have enough money to put food on the table, I have job security, I know that there's a good chance that I'm not going to lose my job, that I'm going to go to work at the same place, and I can do that for a long period of time. We're moving in the right direction. But the healthcare is terrible. That insurance is terrible. And now I'm sitting there looking at it going, look, one bad illness or cancer or injury, and all of a sudden I'm done. If that's constantly weighing on your mind as an employee, you're going to start looking elsewhere. You're going to start thinking about moving on to a different organization that's able to provide that type of safety need for you, that healthcare need. And that goes back to also the health aspect of it. Health as well means that we're getting enough sleep. We're getting enough exercise. We're eating right. If you're going to a job where, again, we're talking about the fire department. If you go to a job and you go to a station for 24 hours, you're awake. You're so busy, you're hustling for 24 hours straight and you're not able to sleep. How is that going to impact your mind? How is that going to impact your body? And how is that going to impact your family when you get home? Those are all factors that we have to weigh in here. So if as leaders, we're able to produce better health outcomes for our firefighters, there's a better likelihood that they're going to stay at least at the level 2 portion of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Another factor of health is our schedules. We know that 24/48 is a very, very rough schedule right now, especially for anybody who is busy. If you're up 2 to 3 times after midnight, you're basically getting zero sleep. There's no rest, there's no recovery. The next day you're spent trying to catch up. Your circadian cycle is all jacked up now, and you're having issues with functioning the next day. Then the day before you go on shift is basically a preparation day. Now I'm worried about preparing for that next shift. There's a huge push right now for 24/72s. And I'm kind of indifferent with it. I'm on the fence with it. I've heard many of the benefits of it about, reducing the amount of hours that our firefighters are working, which is a great thing. I fully support that. And then I also hear the aspects of the cost of it, and not necessarily the cost of the department, because it is what it is to a certain extent. But the cost of it also goes back to the community itself. And when we look at it from a bigger picture, a very, very big picture, we're adding an entire platoon to a department when we go to 24/72s. An entire battalion is being added to this, right? A whole new shift. So to provide the exact same amount of services to the community that we were providing the day before we go to 24/72s, we now have to increase the staffing of that organization by 30%. Which means 30% more firefighters. And again, this is one of those things where I look at it and say, yeah, but it's worth it for our firefighters. However, our state, and when I say state, for those that are listening, I'm based in Florida. So our state in Florida does not have enough firefighters to meet the current needs of a 24/48 schedule. 24/72 means that we're increasing the needs. If every department said tomorrow we're all going to this, we just increased the needs of the state by 33%, and we can't even match the needs currently. So what happens? Well, those departments that are affluent enough to be able to afford it create this schedule. People flock to that area. They fill their needs, and all the other departments now are suffering trying to keep up with staffing their units. What happens to those firefighters that stay? Well, now those guys and girls are getting mandatory every single day, every single shift. And instead of working a 24/48 schedule, now they're working more of a 48/24 schedule, which is absolutely horrific for health. So, and not to get off completely on that soapbox there, but I think that there's a happy medium somewhere, and maybe that's the 24/48 with a 3-week Kelly day. Maybe it's I don't know. I don't know what the schedule is, but there seems to be something that has to happen that matches the availability and the logistics that we currently have for our firefighting and for our staff, as well as the needs of the firefighter themselves for healthcare. So to get off on that, I'm sorry that was a long tangent there, but going back to that, making sure that our organizations can provide an atmosphere and an environment that is conducive to health of the firefighter is critical for long-term employment. So our next level, we've met our physiological level. We have a department that pays well. And when I say well, like I said, it means they meet the needs of the firefighter to provide not only compensation that can sustain the firefighter, but sustain a family, because the worst thing you can do is create a department where I can afford to have brand new firefighters, but if they get married or they have kids, now they can't afford to live here anymore. They can't afford to do this job, because all you're going to do is create a revolving door of young, brand new guys and girls, and we don't want that. We want to be able to have that return on investment from a department standpoint, that I've invested all this money and time into your training and into your gear and into your experience, that we get a return on that by keeping you for a long period of time. And that's what we want. We want that experience to be able to trickle down. But again, soapbox, I'm sorry. So we've got our physiological, we've got the pay, that's good. We've got our jobs, our safety. So we have job security. We're providing for our health needs of our firefighters. Things are going good. Let's move to level 3 now, which is love and belonging. And love and belonging is defined as friendship, intimacy, family, and sense of connection. So this level here is starting to move a little bit away from the safety level. So when we started talking about health, we're talking about healthcare, and we're talking about the health of our firefighters and the environment. Now we're talking about belonging, which may also mean time off for a family. It means quality family time. This goes back to the scheduling as well, and not only just the scheduling, but the call volume and the how busy they are at work. If they're exhausted because they're running calls nonstop, they're never seeing the station, they're not eating properly, they're up all night. When they get home to their family, they are worthless to them. Their time off means nothing, because all it is catching up on sleep, catching up on food, and trying to reset their brain to go to work the next day. There are no weekends for firefighters. The weekend is those 2 days off. So whereas a 40-hour 8 to 5 person gets off at nighttime, and from 5 o'clock to say 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock when they go to bed at night, they're decompressing, they're spending a little time with their family, they're catching up on things around the house, and then they have the weekend that they can really dig into family time. Firefighters don't have that. They have the 2 days that are off. If those 2 days are spent doing what the normal 8 to 5 person is doing from, like I said, when they get home at work from 5 to 10 o'clock, if they're doing that, there is literally no weekend for these guys and girls. So time off is another essential function. This goes back to providing for our firefighters the ability to have that family and have a healthy family. The other aspect of love and belonging that I really want to talk about specific to the fire department is camaraderie. So when I was doing the research for my dissertation, one thing that came up over and over and over again, and I researched and I did interviews and focus groups with 21 firefighters and 17 lieutenants, which are basically range from a lieutenant to captain position in the organization that I did the research on, because that is the fire officer is a lieutenant. I did the research on these 38 individuals, and the two biggest intrinsic motivations for these guys and girls related to the department and why they stayed with the department and why they joined the fire department in the first place was A, because they wanted to help people. And I think that we hear this a lot, especially those that sit on interview boards. We hear this all the time. Why do you want to be a firefighter? I want to help people. I want to help my community. I want to save people's lives. I want to be a hero. Great. The other one, B, that I heard over and over again was camaraderie. They talked about being a part of a family at the stations and having that camaraderie of their crew and being a part of their crew. Conversely, all the negativity, or a substantial amount of the negativity that I heard from an intrinsic value and a morale value, came from positions that we would call floater positions. And these floaters are ones that are not assigned to a crew regularly. Basically, their job is to fill in on other crews when somebody is off. And very, very interesting concept and trend that occurred with this was that every one of the floaters, without exception, discussed the morale of the organization and the morale of crews to be horrendous. They said everything is negative, the whole world's falling apart, the sky's falling. Those that were on a crew consistently and permanently, that were assigned to a crew that they regularly worked with, didn't have that approach. They all said, yes, the department's morale was terrible, but the actual crew level had extremely high morale, and they loved working together, and things were great, and I said, man, that's weird that if everyone says that the department is falling apart and the morale is terrible, but everyone says that their crew and their station is fantastic, where is the issue here? And the issue comes from those outside people plugging into the family. It's not the actual individual person. It's the fact that negativity just breeds negativity, and it's so easy to talk about. So when you had those camaraderie, you had those crews that worked together on a regular basis, there was so much just joy in coming to work and being a part of that atmosphere. So again, going back to the third level, camaraderie is another aspect that's really key. That's that belonging part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of those motivations. So as leaders, if we are able to build a culture of camaraderie, if we're able to build those teams that work together very, very well and that have that consistent crew that they're working with, that's going to help build that level of belongings. So again, if I have pay, and that's good, I have job security and my health needs and healthcare are good, but my crew is constantly changing, it's constantly negative, I'm never seeing the same people that I'm working with more than once, you're still going to lose people from that. You're still going to have those people that leave the organization to seek camaraderie and to seek that time off. Let's move on to step 4. Level 4 is esteem. Esteem is described as respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, and freedom. So going back to our fire department example that we're talking about today, esteem is our respect and our recognition. I think those are the two ones that really stood out to me in this. And when I say that, I mean the ability to have the respect of not only myself and my self-esteem, but the respect of others that I work with, and to have that recognition. So I like to think of this as the senior firefighter. So I have a firefighter who's doing a good job. They have the pay, they have the job security, they have the camaraderie, they're assigned to a crew, and now they've been with that crew 5 or 6 years. As they're with that crew, they're building up that respect and that recognition as a senior firefighter, and they're mentoring others, they're helping the lieutenant or the fire officer to guide the new guy, and they have a lot of people that are looking up to them. Hey, what's firefighter Joe over there doing? I want to do what he's doing because he's the senior guy, he's the most respected person on the crew. Regardless of rank, this is just within the job and within the career field, they've built the respect and the recognition. And that's another big aspect of this. So again, I can hit the first 3 levels, but when I get to that esteem level, if I'm not respected and I don't have any recognition, and to stop really quick there, to dig into that, recognition comes from our leader. It comes from not only those around me that respect me, but it comes from that leader saying, hey, I recognize that you're doing a good job. I recognize that you've taken on additional projects and you're killing it as a firefighter. Great job. And not only just recognition, but public recognition is really, really important for that. So that's another factor that we can as leaders affect, impact, and change that culture within our organization. So once they have that respect and recognition, now they have that self-confidence and that self-esteem. So again, first level, physiological, is our pay. Second level is safety, which is our job security and our health. Third level is love and belonging, which is our camaraderie and our time off for quality time with our family. Fourth level was esteem, which is our respect and our recognition that we get from the experience and from our crews and everything else. The final level that we're going to talk about is self-actualization. And self-actualization is described as the desire to become better or to become the most that one can be. And I look at this as the desire to promote, the desire to lead others, the desire to mentor others and coach others. So again, going back to that senior firefighter, there's going to come a time when that senior firefighter goes, you know what? I'm ready to step up to the next level. I want to promote to a higher rank. Or if that's not a desire of theirs, they may say, I want to lead others. I want to, I want to get into the training division. I want to start training these firefighters. I want to mentor these firefighters and coach them to be better, and I want to be better. And that comes from all different kinds of ways. Do I want to seek a degree? Do I want to go and do some training classes? Do I want to start my own training classes in my own conference? Do I want to, pursue a different special team within the fire service, whether it be TRT or hazmat or anything like that? That's that desire to become better. And that's the final level. Once we're able to hit that. So this is where we see a lot of issues with a very good department, a very successful department, but a lot of times are smaller departments. So we have a department, we'll say, Main Street Fire Rescue. Main Street Fire Rescue provides great pay. They're able to live within their community. They're able to provide food and shelter and all that good stuff. They have great safety. There's no stress of job security disappearing on them. Healthcare is good. They provide a healthy environment. They provide love and belonging. There's great crew. The crew that's working together has strong camaraderie. They have perfect time off where they're able to have quality time with their family because they're not running ridiculous amounts of calls where all they're doing is catching up when they're off duty. The firefighters there are recognized on a regular basis. They respect each other. Things are going great. But then you have the guy that says, okay, I've been here 5 years now. I want to do better. I want to promote. And they look at it and they say, okay, new LT. Hey, LT, how long have you been on the job? Oh, I've been here for 25 years. Oh, fantastic. When did you promote to lieutenant? Well, I got promoted when I was 23 years on. Oh, well, now all of a sudden they look at that and say, I don't have the promotional opportunities. They look at that and say, I don't have the ability to go better and go bigger or anything like that. Maybe I'll jump into a special team. Well, it's a small department. No hazmat, no tech rescue, no dive team, no SWAT team, none of those things. Well, if that's the case, then they're not going to be able to continue and provide better for themselves. They're not going to be able to continue to grow within their organization. What are they going to do? They're going to seek an organization that meets those needs. So every single one of these steps we have to provide for as leaders in order to keep our employees happy, to keep them their job satisfaction elevated, to keep morale elevated, and to keep them working an entire career with us rather than just a short period of time. And going back to what I said in the beginning about the reason why it's a pyramid is because, he could have described it as a ladder and said, okay, rung 1 is this, rung 2, or step 1 is this, step 2 is this. But he did it as a pyramid because really They all build off each other and they're all supported by the levels below them. So if I have that firefighter that's doing fantastic, everything is met, they're working on promotion, they've got all levels of the needs theory that are checked. And then all of a sudden, something happens, their house burns down, and now the pay is no longer enough to afford them to regroup and to survive. All of a sudden, those other four things going on no longer matter. They don't matter at all because pay and physiological, that survival level, is the most important. Or here's another aspect, another scenario for you. I hire firefighter Joe at 20 years old. He's doing a great job. Everything is met on his checklist. He's been on the job 5 years. He's looking to promote, and all of a sudden, Joe falls in love and gets married, and his wife is pregnant. And now they realize that his pay was sustainable for him alone. But now that he's married and starting a family, that pay is no longer enough for him to survive and enough for that family to survive. Then guess what? All of those other factors just stopped and reset so that he can go back to the pay level, which means if that pay is not being met, he's going to leave and he's going to go to a department that does pay better because of that. He has to in order for his survival. And that goes through all of it. If I'm all the way up to the point where I'm ready to promote, everything is going good, I've met all 5 levels, then all of a sudden my entire crew changes, we no longer have camaraderie and everyone hates going to work, guess what? I just reset down to level 3. So now all of a sudden the respect, recognition, and the desire to be better no longer matter. My only focus and my only goal and motivation now is to get out of the situation that I'm in where the camaraderie is terrible. So these are just examples of how it resets over and over again. But this is something that during the research that I was doing for the dissertation, I saw this brought up over and over and over again. This is constantly brought up that morale is good at my station, but as the department, it's terrible. Okay, go one step further. When we got to the end of the interview and I said, what else is affecting morale? Every single person of the organization that I interviewed said pay. Pay is a problem. Pay. So all of these things that they were discussing, that they were talking about of leadership aspects, they were talking about crews, they were talking about satisfaction and motivations, all of those things still came down to that last section of pay. If the pay isn't enough to survive, nothing else matters. So we have to make sure that we are meeting each and every level of the needs theory, each and every level of motivation and of satisfaction in order to move up to the next level. So if you're a department that is focused primarily on leadership training and primarily on change culture and trying to make things better and more positive, but you haven't met all of the other levels below that, you're wasting your time. You need to prioritize each of those levels in that order. And really, if you're a department that's for lack of better terms, in a rebuilding phase, that is looking to change the culture, that's looking to regain their status as a fire department, this could actually be utilized as your strategic plan. Each of these 5 levels. Step 1, increase pay that's comparable and competitive to other organizations. Step 2, increase the health environment of our department and organization. Step 3, build better camaraderie through whatever, training and allowing for time off and quality time for family. Step 4, recognizing our employees for doing a good job. Step 5, desire to promote or leadership training to build better mentoring and coaching. Those 5 steps right there are going to completely change the culture and completely change the dynamic of your department, because now you've literally identified every single one of those 5 needs and motivations within Maslow's hierarchy. So, like I said, I'm very, very passionate about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I use it a lot when I talk about the fire department, I talk about employees, when I talk about leadership, I talk about training. And obviously it was important enough that I used it as the main theory for my entire dissertation. So very, very good stuff. I hope you guys took something away from this. Again, if you like the podcast or you have any suggestions, comments, concerns, please visit www.unbrandedleadership.com. Send us an email on there. There's a contact us form. Otherwise, spread the word, like the podcast, and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching. Enjoy.